Greetings everyone, welcome to Advanced, and this game was played in 2014, and then you know who I'm talking about and whose game I'm going to show you, because this is from the Sinquefield Cup 2013, and I mean 2013 2014, and you know that this guy was an absolute beast. 7-0 score, and yes, we're talking about Fabiano Caruana, the absolute calculating machine, and you're gonna see what happens because in this game he actually beat a former world champion, and that's absolutely spectacular. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Here, knight to f3 was played by Veselin Topalov. With the white pieces, we have Veselin Topalov, former world champion, and with the black pieces, now you know the man, you know the myth. And here we have knight to f6, and just going for this c4, c5. We go into the English opening symmetrical variation. Knight to c3, knight to c6, going for the 4 knights variation of the English, and we have g3, d5. Immediately striking in the center, we have c captures, knight captures, bishop to g2, and just going for this knight back to c7. Trying to not trade more pieces because just keeping the pieces in just helps keep the tension, and also just also it helps him crush everyone else. Here just castles, we have e5 immediately striking in the center, but just a3, not allowing that knight to jump. I mean, you can jump here, but that's beyond the point because your pawn would be hanging. So here rook to b8. Now that bishop is always going to be very strong, this Fianchetto bishop, so you have to, it's always a nice idea, nice prophylactic move to get the rook out of the way. D3 now, just going for the central squares, and also this and this is not going to be in the position for at least for a few more moves. Bishop to e7 now, preparing for castles. Bishop to e3, castles, and now just going for rook to c7. So if you look at the position is absolutely fine for both the pieces, for both both the people. There is, if you go here, then just you allow more trades, you get into the shadow of the bishop. Also, there is no knight jumping possible because your pawn would be hanging. You could play a move like f6, but f6, you have to understand, it's a little bit weakening of your king, and you would not want to do something like that because the queen can jump in with a tempo. You can develop, you can get the rook into the game, and then white would be absolutely better. So not doing something like that. So here just bishop to d7 was played, just waiting and going to see what your plan is actually going to be. Knight to d2 now, but now just knight to d4. Finally going for that because you just moved it away and now there is no threat. So just going right at it. We have knight to c4 now, reinitializing the threat, but we have f6. So is this going to be one of those times where f6 is actually a ruiner of this position, or is it going to be one of those times where f6 actually works? Unfortunately for Veselin, the f6 move in this position actually works because now f4, just trying to open up the king side, and he's also saying that I'm playing with the white pieces, I'm going to attack you, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about that. But unfortunately in this position that doesn't hold true because e captures, bishop captures, and knight to d6, and now comes bishop to d2. Bishop going back is basically just not a good move, simply because of the fact that bishop was doing absolutely fine there. But you have to understand that if you want to wish to win this game against Fabi, you have to understand you have to keep the bishop here. This bishop is very, very strong. Other than this bishop is not doing sorry, not that, this bishop is obviously not doing anything, and this bishop is much, much better. So it would be better if you can get this bishop into the game, attack the queen, attack the king side, maybe just push those pawns, but then you create weaknesses, and that's why it's a little bit important to keep this bishop. Otherwise your position is not that good. That's why he brings it back. Now we have b6, and now just g4. G4 is it a threat to something greater, or is it just a hopeless attempt? Well, we're gonna see, because now bishop to e8, and now we have bishop back to e1, and these are just not that great pieces. That's what you have to understand. A position like this with the white pieces, I mean, somewhere along the line, if even if you're just seeing it on the board happening right in front of you, and your opponent is playing this, you're going to be like, I have a great position, I'm just going to push for a win here. And that's exactly what happened, because now b5, and now that knight has to move. Knight to e3 was played, and now comes bishop to d6. This bishop is a very, very strong bishop, is what you have to understand, because that bishop is going to be very much useful now that you have played g4 here in this position. And with g4, I mean, you have to understand there is no bishop countering that bishop, and as long as that bishop is going to remain in the position, you're always going to be under some threat, because you can just push this, maybe just capture with the rook, get the queen here, use the geometry, and set up threats on both sides of the board, and that's happening all because of this bishop. So you have to understand it's a very strong piece. So what happens when there's a strong piece in the center of the board? You try to attack it with your knight, and that's exactly what Veselin should have done in this position. Knight to f5 is the best move in this position. But here, after bishop going forward, because there is no back, if you go back, I just eliminate your bishop. Without the bishop, you have no attack, and without the attack, this is most likely going to end in a draw. But here, after e3 is a move which is basically saying that I have centralized pawn, I can push that, maybe just limit your influence, and once you go back, I'm just going to trade your bishop. But here comes b4. And now you don't have that luxury because you have to go a captures now. But I'm not going to capture with the pawn. I'm going to capture with the rook, and I'm again reestablishing the threat. First here, queen is going to jump in. There is going to be some pressure here, and I'm basically saying that I'm absolutely fine here. There is nothing in the position that you can do with the white pieces, and that's going to be a very true statement, because other than this knight, all your pieces are surrounding in the backside, and you have nothing to show for it. But after bishop to d6, Veselin didn't go for it. He went for knight c to d5, centralizing the piece, and he thought maybe that it just would be enough, but it's not, because here comes knight captures, and after bishop captures, it seems like you're doing something, but you're absolutely not, because bishop to f7, and what is that bishop doing there? Yes, it's a central piece. Yes, you have gotten in with the tempo, and now you have a piece which is in the center of the board, and this bishop, other than being on this diagonal now, is a really strong piece. But other than that, I mean, it's not a threat in the position. That's what you have to understand. These two bishops are strong, but this bishop can be kicked away. Here, knight to f5 was played now, but it's a bit too late, because bishop to e5 now, and there is not much. Now that pawn is under attack. Queen to d2 was played. Queen to d2, with the idea that you're just defending that pawn. But better again was e4. E4 with the idea that you're just cementing that bishop there. And yes, white black is a little bit better, but with that bishop, maybe you'll be able to do something, because then after bishop captures, you're sacrificing pawn, rook to c2, but bishop caps on e3, and you have to understand that this is a bit too complicated. Yes, you have three pawns, and two of them are pass pawns, and holding it would be a very insane disaster. But you have to understand, you have a bishop who's controlling everything. These pieces are not that good. Maybe with the queen coming in, you can do something, but it's just very, very difficult. But I mean, that was the best that Veselin had in this position. But after queen to d2, it's just not looking that good, because here comes knight to d4, and that knight is a very, very strong piece. And I'm also trading one of my bad bishops for a good bishops, and that's the thing. A bishop captures, rook captures, and rook to d1. And now black has a very nice knight on d4, and there is, I mean, you could trade it, but then the bishop jumps in, and the queen is jumping in next. I mean, the position is going to absolutely collapse. But here, knight caps on f5 was played, but now after g captures, we have queen to d4, and now you can understand there are some issues. This is what happens. I mean, see, just a few of your entire life, your entire position was depending on that bishop. Once that bishop is traded off, now you have very passive pieces, and now once you have these passive pieces, all of these pieces, once they're trying to come, and once they're going to come into the position is going to absolutely crumble. And that's what happening, because after bishop to f2 attacking the queen, you have queen to g4, and once now the king moves, there is a lot of checkmating ideas here. Rook can jump in, you can push this pawn, you can double up on the d file. Your position is absolutely amazing. Here c4 was played by Fabi, and you have to understand that there is not much you can do in this position. The absolute best for white in this position is bishop to g1, and bishop to g1 with the idea that you're just defending everything. There are no checks in this position along the light squares, and after the rook to d7, you play queen to e3, but rook b to d8, and you're just getting crushed, man. There is no doubts about that. But here after c4, just queen to c2 was played, and it just simply doesn't work. I mean, you're just moving away from the defense of the king, and there are very insane mating ideas as well. So rook to e8 was played. But now after d captures, we have queen to h5, now going for the checkmate. How do I defend? You play h4, but now after queen to g4, now the queen is coming into the position. Queen to d3 was tried here, but after b captures, we have queen to e3. You cannot recapture simply because of the fact that this and this would result in checkmate. Rook f to e7 was tried, but just b3 now. And now comes the fatal blow. We have bishop to b2, attacking the queen, and also, if you come here, then the pawn, you lose the pawn. After losing the pawn, this is becoming a pass pawn, so you're just going to push that, and the position is absolutely crumbling. There is nothing you could do about it. So on just move 34, former world champion Veselin Topalov resigned the game, and Fabi got this spectacular victory in round 1 of the Sinquefield Cup, crushing Veselin Topalov, a former world champion, in just 34 moves. It just shows how prime Fabi was absolutely destructive. Really an amazing game, and just shows that, I mean, he was one of the best players in the world, and he still is. He's still world number 3, and very, very going strong. Even the Sinquefield Cup that's happening in 2025, that's like 12 years later. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.